What's going on, fellow web developers? My name is Tyler Potts, and in today's video we're going to be doing a Vue JS project. So we've already created this application inside of React JS. So if you want to see that video, go check it out. It will be back a Vue. It's called React. It's going to be the same name as this, but it replaced the Vue JS bit with React JS. I don't know what I named it. I can't remember. It was a long time ago, guys. But yeah, so we're going to be building this anime quote generator here. We're going to be using the anime chan. It is built by Rock Tim Saikaya. I'm sorry for butchering your name, but it's absolutely awesome. It's amazing. And if we go to the guide over here, you can see there's a bunch of different routes you can do. You can mess around with a lot of this. For now, we're going to be using the one and only get a random quote, and then we're going to be storing these random quotes within inside of our VueJS applications. And also, just a thing to note is you can only make 100 requests per hour. I've already made quite a few, so hopefully we don't get blocked out at any point during this. But if we do, it'll be a good, lesson for you. So yeah, so cool. Let's get started. So I'm just going to close this. I'm going to show you this app. So you can see here we get an anime quota. It gives us the name of the anime, the quote, and the person who actually said it. So if I click get new quote, you can see fruit baskets. If it's possible for one person to be hurt by another, then it's possible for that person to be healed by another. Soma Hattori, sorry for butchering names. And as you can see down here, we have the quotes saved and stored down here. They just show up like this, and if you hover over them, it shows you the full quote. Just simple stuff, but looks really cool. So guys, without further ado, let's get started with the tutorial. Okay guys, actually I'm in a blank folder within VS Code. What I'm going to do is I'm going to press Control, and on Windows it's the single quote key, or on Mac I believe it's Control Options T. So yeah, it's going to open up the terminal inside of VS Code itself, and what we're going to run is Vue create, and we're just going to run dot. Now dot is just going to create the VueJS instance within our YouTube directory here. So if we hit enter, it's going to ask us generate project and current directory. We're just going to hit enter. That's going to give us a yes, and then we're going to use the default Vue 3, although we can use default Vue 2 because we're only using the options API inside of this project. So but either way, you can use either one and it should still work. So I'm going to wait for this to do, and I'm going to see you once that is done. Okay guys, that's now done, and I'm just going to quickly run the following command: npm install -d sas-loader at version 10 SAS. Now the reason I'm installing this is because I want to be able to use SAS in my project, and SAS loader will basically help me do that. So I just need to hit enter, let this run, and then once this is installed, we can literally just use the language SAS. So there you go, that's now done, and I'm just now going to run npm run surf inside of the root directory to actually start the development server. So if we've refreshed the right over here, you can see we get welcome to your VueJS app. Now, pretty cool, but we want to do a little bit more of that. So inside of our source is where we're going to be making all our changes. Now, we do not need the assets folder. Just delete the whole thing. Yes, we're going to get an error. Let's go to our app and actually just delete the image here. Let's also delete the hello world. Hello world. We've got to delete the import, delete the hello world here. Close that, go away. Let's close this sidebar for now and zoom in one. And let's delete everything from in here. We're also then going to say language is equal to, and we're going to say SAS, and that way we can write some SAS inside of here. We're just going to close off our components for a second and also tab it out properly because it's currently using the wrong tab indentation. And then inside of our template, the first thing we'll do is we're going to create just a wrapper called app. We're then going to have a header component, but before we do that, let's just write header here, hit save, and there you go. You can see that's working on the left. So let's quickly set up some styles ready for our application. So what we want to do is we want to say root, because we're going to be using Css Variables. I believe they're the best variables and they work really well. So we're going to have a primary. The value of this is going to be equal to D8, 1, E5, D, B. There we go. We're going to have a secondary, and this one's going to be equal to 8a 4f ff. Now I'm going to actually just add the rest of these in, and I'll see you in a second. Okay guys, actually that's all done. We've got a primary, secondary, tertiary, dark, light and grey value there. We're also then going to add some default styling to, I think we're going to say margin 0, padding 0. We're going to say box sizing border box, and then we're just going to give it a font family of Fira Sans serif, just like that. And there we go. Everything is already looking 10 times better. So that's all we're going to do in the Sass right now. The next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to create our header component. Now this is going to be a very basic component, so let's go onto the left. Inside components, let's just delete hello world, we don't need it. Let's create a new file and call it header.vue. Now, inside this .vue file, I'm just going to run Vue, and it's going to automatically create this. Now, what does that is actually an extension I have installed called, let's find it down here. It's called Future by Pinewoo. It's a Vue tooling for VS Code. It comes with a bunch of different things, and it's super useful. So, yeah. Enjoy this extension for Vue JS. It is the best in my opinion. So there we go. We've got this template, and we're just going to create a header tag inside of here. And then inside of here, we're going to have a h1, and we're going to pass through a title, just like that. Ignore the back ones there. There we go. Delete. So we've got our title there, and then inside of export default, we're going to have a props, which is going to have an array of strings, which is going to be our title prop, which we're going to pull through. We then can style this. So again, we just want to say language equals Sass. We're then going to say scoped. What scoped does is it basically scopes the styling to this. So if you wrote in here body black, it wouldn't work because there's no body in here, but it would only be scoped this. So if you had a header in here, and in the header you said padding 24 pixels and 32 pixels, it will only apply to this header here. It won't apply to any others. So if you had another header in here, it would not apply, and that's what scope does. I hope I've explained that well enough. So inside of our header, we're then going to have a display of flex. We're then going to have a justify content, and we're going to basically just say center because we want to bring everything to the center. We're then going to get our h1 and just give it a font size of 32 pixels will do. Let's go for that. Let's go for a color of far, and this is how we use our CSS variables, and we're just going to say dark. We're then going to say font weight, we'll make it 700, although it should already be 700, we'll just double make it 700. We're going to do text line center, we'll do text transform uppercase, and we're then going to give it a padding bottom of 8 pixels. Finally, we'll add a border bottom, and we'll say 5 pixels solid, and we're going to say far primary. Save that, and hopefully that should be all we need. So let's go back to our app here. We're going to go over the script. We're going to say import header from, and then we're going to say /components / header.vue, and then inside of our components we're going to say header, and finally we'll change this header into an actual header. Now this isn't actually going to work directly because we actually need to pass through a title prop. So we're going to pass through a title, and the title of this one is going to be the anime quota. That's not how you spell it. Quota. Now that word looks weird to me. God damn it. But there you go. That's how, just getting a simple component in there. Now, the next one we want to get is our actual quote component. So the actual quote component, we're going to create another component in here. So we're going to create a new one. We'll call it quote.vue. And in here, once again, we're just going to type view, hit enter to get the default styling. And then we're going to just have a section with the class of quote. Inside of here, we're just going to have a quote content block. That's not quote, that's quot. And then we'll pass through, let's just say content goes here, ... For now, we'll be passing this through dynamically once we get there. We're then going to have a quote info area. And inside the quote info, we're going to get a quote info author. Quote author will do. /diff. And then we'll just say who's the quote author of this one? It's going to be me. And then we're going to have a quote anime, which is going to say life. That's going to be our anime, and I'm going to move this above that one. So we're going to have quote info, quote anime, and then quote author in that order. And then inside of our export default, we're going to have another props, which is just going to say quote. So we're actually going to pass the quote through to our script here. And finally, in our styles, what we want to do is we want to give it the language of Sass. We're going to give it the scoped attribute. And then we're going to say dot quote. We're going to give it the position of relative, because we're going to have an absolute positioned element inside of it. We're then going to say margin, let's say 0 auto, padding of 32 pixels, a max width of 720 pixels. And I think that's good for that. Let's go and hyphen content. And then with the content, we're just going to give it position of relative again. We're then going to have a font size of 1.5M potentially. Let's just say 28 pixels. 28 pixels seems good enough. Let's then give it a font weight of 400, 700, 700. We'll make it bold. 600. We'll make it semi-bold. We'll then say background color, and we're just going to set this again to the variable of dark. We're then going to give it an actual color, which is going to be the variable of light. Thank you there, Copilot, for finishing that off for me. We're giving it a padding not of 16, but of 48 pixels and 32 pixels. We want it quite big, so we want to push out a massive area. And then a border radius of about 16 pixels there. Let's have a look what this looks like for now. So let's quickly go to our app. Let's import this area. So we're just going to say import quote from, and there you go. Nice and simple. Just say quote. And then under here, we can say quote just like that. And you see we get our actual quote there, life and me underneath. So that should now be showing up. So that's good. Let's style the life and me section. So let's go into our quote again. Underneath content, we're going to have and info. Now this is going to be position absolute. I'm going to set to top 0, left, 0, right 0, and bottom 0. We'll then set our padding to be 32 pixels. We'll then have an dot quote author, I think correctly, and dot quote anime. There you go, that is correct. And then let's just break these down to make it look a little neater. And then in there, we're just going to say position absolute. They're both going to be positioned absolute within inside of an absolute element. I know, sounds crazy, but we're doing it. We're going crazy with this one. So position, we're going to give it a padding of about 12 pixels, 16 pixels, just to pad it out a little bit. A font size of about 24 pixels. Yeah, good guess, Copilot. Font weight of, let's just make this 700, 400, 700. Let's just do it bold. I think that'll work well. And then a border radius of 99 pixels, so you want round edges, although you can't see that right now. Let's give them color of light by default, just because they'll most likely be on darker backgrounds, and text align center there. We're then going to get the singular quote author, and if I remember my E, that'd be useful. My E for some reason is sticking and it's not working very well. It's all good. We'll fix that. And we're just going to say top calc, and we're going to say 100% minus 32 pixels. We're then going to say right 0, and then let's give it a transform translate Y of minus 50% to bring it up, and a background color of far secondary. There you go. So now it's sat over there. Look good. Let's actually make it something else rather than me. Let's say myself. There you go. There you go, that's looking pretty good over there. The reason we did this calculation, by the way, is because this is going to be pushing it down 100%, and then it's going to bring it up minus 32 pixels. We'll also bring it up, the reason I'm bringing it up 32 pixels is because we have a padding of 32 pixels around the info, which basically push it out. So we're basically bringing it back in. That's why we've got this calculation there. And then let's get our quote anime. And inside of our quote anime, we're just going to say top 0 pixels. Left is going to be 0 pixels. We're then going to say background color is equal to far. And we're going to say tertiary. There we go. And let's just give it a color of dark, I think, actually, because there's going to be a light color. And there you go. That's now looking good. What works? Does light work? No, dark definitely works better for that one. There you go. So we've got the dark anime title and then the actual anime character down there with the content. I think that's looking pretty good. I think we're missing some quotes. So inside of our content up here, we need to actually add in an and before and an and after. And within here, we're just going to say content is going to equal to a quote. We're going to say our color is equal to far. Oh, I just realized that should be that. Light or gray even. And finally, a margin of 0 pixels, 2 pixels, just to push it away from the content. There you go. We've got our quotes there now, which look pretty good. And that's this section done. We just need to actually change out the quote content to be actual content. So let's go back to our app. And underneath components, let's add our data here. Here we go. And in here, we're going to return and we're going to say quote, singular quote, which is going to be our current quote. We're then going to have quote, which will be an array of quotes. And let's close that off there. There we go. So inside of our quote, we're going to have a bunch of different things. So let's actually add in, we're going to need content, of course, which is just going to say content goes here. We're then going to have in anime, which is going to be the name of the anime. Let's just say Naruto. And let's say character, which is going to be Madara. There we go. Madara. And cool. So now what we're going to do is in our quote up here, we're going to pass through a quote and it's going to be equal to our quote variable. And what we're going to do is we're going to be able to go in here. We're going to replace this to say quote.content. We're going to replace the anime name to say quote.anime. And also the author to say quote.notAuthor character. Probably should name the variable a bit, I mean the CSS variable a bit better, but it's fine. There you go. So that's now updated with the correct stuff. And you can see Naruto, content goes here, Madara. Perfect. Looking good. That's all updated. And that component's now done with. Same with the header. And those two are in. So that's great. We've added in pre-content. So content that's already there. But now how do we actually go about adding in the functionality to actually pull from the API? So inside of our app.vue, underneath data, we're going to create a function. So we're going to create a methods options API element here, and we're going to call this getQuote. And this is actually going to be an asynchronous method. And we're going to say we're actually going to call this data, and we're going to resolve our response here. So we're going to say then res is equal to res.json. No, arrow function to res.json. There we go. And that should be good. Let's just zoom out one here just so we can read that a bit better. And there you go. So we now need to get the API. So we need to go to anime chan.firstl, scroll down and grab this one here. So copy that, paste this inside of here, and then we can close that out again. You can see here it's now in. And then we're going to, right under here, we're going to say this.quote is equal to, and we're actually going to break this down. We're going to say content is equal to data.quote, because that's how it's passed through. Our anime is going to be data.anime, and our character is data.character. Now that should actually work. And then basically that's just going to update that. But how do we call this? So we actually want to call this when we basically launch the app. So we'll create a created lifecycle method. And in here, we'll just say this.getQuote. Now, as you can see, it randomly pulled through a new quote. So every time we refresh, you can see Vampire Night, sometimes forgetting is a type of happiness. Kaname Quran. And there you go. That's now working. So every single time we refresh, we're going to get a new quote. Now, I'm going to turn this off for now because basically every time we refresh that, we're going to use up one of our hundreds. And I don't want to wait another hour before I get any more so we can actually do this. So we're basically just we're gonna turn it off for a second. So we're not using up all of them. We'll leave default in there. So that's done. Now what's next? We actually want to get a button that generates it as well. So our button will basically go up here underneath quote. We'll just say content or no button container. And inside here we're gonna have a button which says generate. It can say whatever you want it to say. I'm just gonna say generate. And then we're going to say at click. Oh, that's not an at click is equal to, and we're basically going to say get quote. And that's all we're going to do because basically we're going to call the same function again. So now if we click this button, you can see it goes code breaker. I could kill you, but I won't become like, but I won't become like you. I added a comma there accidentally. Become like you, who uses power for his own egoism. Toki Fujiwara. And yeah, basically that's that. Let's go style up this button container. So let me just copy this, scroll down to our CSS. And basically under here, we're just going to say button container. Oh, sorry, I forgot the dot. And we're just going to say display flex justify content center. I saw you. And then padding is going to be to about 0 pixels, 32 pixels. Bring everything in like we would. And then we're going to have a margin of 64 pixels auto to bring it center, although it's already going to be center. We're then going to have our button here, and we're basically just going to go here, border, none, outline, none. Our background color, however, is going to be a far primary. We're then going to give it a padding of 16 pixels, 32 pixels to make it quite a big button. We're then going to give it a border radius of 99 pixels, not 4. We will then add a color of not far dark. Let's give it light. A font size of 28 pixels. A font weight of bold, so let's make it 700. Text transform uppercase, it already had it there. There we go. Text transform uppercase, cursor pointer, and then transition 0.4s. And then we'll just say and hover. So when we hover over the element, we're going to give it a background color of secondary, just like that. And there you go. That's working perfectly there. So now when we click generate, Excel world, I am for you. I'm not going to read the whole thing out, but you get the gist. It's basically working. We can now generate it, but obviously we want to store these. So that's why we have this quotes here. Now this is super simple to store these. Before we get our data here, or, well, yeah, we keep doing it before or after. We're just going to say if this.quote.content, right? So if we have content, we're not going, spoiler alert, we won't actually have content because it's going to be blank. If we have content, then will basically means we already have a quote. So we're going to say this.quotes is equal to, and we're just going to say this.quotes with this.quote, just like that. So what we're doing here is we're basically saying create a new array, basically create a new array from this.quote and then add this.quote on the end. And that's going to basically update this quotes there. So this.quote.content, so if we actually have something in there, meaning it's not the first time we go round, it will then work. Otherwise it won't work. So basically that's how it works. And then let's just get this generate quote here. So now when we refresh, you can see bleach dummy. We actually need to print this off under here. So let's just say this.quote. Oh, quotes. So you can see it's an empty array. So if we refresh, you can see we get an empty array. But when we generate, you can see the one from before is added, and then this is a new one. So there you go, that's now working. So let's go down here, just turn off create again for a moment, just so we don't have to keep wasting our points. And we're going to create a new file called quote list.vue. Now we're just going to do the Vue templating again. And finally, for this one, we're basically going to just loop through a list. So we're just going to say section.quote list. And then inside of here, we're just going to have a .quote, which will have inside of it a quote header or quote content. It's basically just going to be, let's just say quote content, and then pass through. We're going to actually just get quote dot content there. Now this quote up here is actually going to have a fee 4, which is going to be equal to, we're going to do quote I in quote dot. Now this is where we're going to do something special. We're going to say slice. So we're going to create a new array, and we're going to say reverse the order, because these will save in basically they'll save the oldest at the end, so or the newest quote we generate at the end, and we want the newest one to be at top. So we're just going to reverse the order. We're then going to create a key here, and the key will be equal to I, and I just did some React syntax there. I meant to do quotes, and there you go. So let's just break this down so it looks a bit neater. Close that sidebar there. Quote, the fee 4, the key, and that's good there. So that's broken down. So that's why we're reversing the order of our quotes, just so it comes in the right order down below here. And then in here, we're just going to say props, and we're just going to say quotes, just like that. And that should be good for that. Now, in our styling, we're just going to say lang is equal to Sass as usual. We're going to scope it to this. We're then going to say quote list, and we're just going to say padding 32 pixels. We're going to give it a max width of 720 pixels with a margin 0 auto. We're then going to say our quote, and we're going to style our quote with a background color. It's actually just going to be a light background color. We're then going to give it a padding of about 16 pixels, a border radius of 16 pixels, perfect, and a margin bottom of 16 pixels. 16 pixels is that magic number for me. It's a number that does it. We're then going to get our content inside of here, and we're going to do a little bit of magic. We're going to say overflow hidden, right? We're then going to say text overflow ellipsis. We're then going to say white space no wrap, and then line height will be the same as our height, which is going to be 1.4. Like, what size is our font going to be? Have we decided what size our font's going to be? Let's say 20 pixels. No, 18 pixels. Make it smaller. So let's just say our actual max height is going to be 18 pixels for the content inside, that is. We're then going to go outside of the content, and we're going to say on hover. We're just going to say our quote content is basically going to have a white space of, say, unset, because we basically just want to unset. No, not an unquote, unset. And then our max height will go to unset as well. So now, if we go, this should be good. Let me just double check. I think it's looking good. Let's go back to our app and import this quickly. So underneath quote, we're just going to say import quote list from quote list, and then just copy this, add that in there, and finally we'll just say quote list quotes is equal to quotes, and there you go. Now let's turn this all on and see how it works. Let's basically bring that back. So now when we load, you see we get a Attack on Titan reference here. I want to see and understand the world outside. I don't want to die inside these walls without knowing what's out there. Eren Yeager. Generate. And there you go. You can see his quote has gone down here, and the new one is up here. And we can keep generating, and you can see they're coming in the right order. So there you go. Old man, everyone, and you, Luffy, even though I've been good for nothing my whole life. You can see all these cool quotes are now coming in, and they're loading on screen. So that is how we build an anime quote generator with VueJS and the AnimeChan API. Now, thank you all for watching this video. If you've learned something new, don't forget to leave a thumbs up. If you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a thumbs up. If you want to see more, don't forget to leave a thumbs up. Smash that subscribe button. Leave a comment, any feedback or anything you want to see me do in the future. Don't forget to drop in the Discord or the comments below. And don't forget to join the Discord. Thank you all for tuning into this video and peace out.